Okay, so we are ready to start. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to welcome all of you on our webinar. And today we are talking about recruitment analytics and working with the recruitment funnel. So let's start. Here we have our class program, a lot to talk about. So I would prefer to start immediately because we have so many different information to learn. Firstly, I want to say that modern recruitment process is much more than just a recruitment. We call the whole system a talent acquisition or talent attraction system in the company. And as you can see on this picture, it has so many different parts, like employer branding, recruiting itself, working with audiences of candidates, of course, automation. We have also onboarding here. We have candidate relationship management. We have metrics and analytics. Before that, we have talent attraction planning and strategy and staff segmentation. So to make sure that your company recruitment, or it's much better to call it talent acquisition, working fine, you need to make sure that all these parts are covered with your attention, with your tools, processes, templates, actions, and so on and so forth, right? But how to do that actually? How to make sure that we deal with all these parts and that these parts are working in the most efficient way. For this, we have recruitment system audit checklist that is available with this link. So you go to this checklist, and this checklist covers all these parts like talent, attraction, planning and strategy, personal segmentation, candidate audiences, employer branding, and so on. So you just need to make sure you read the description, you need to make sure you have this in place in your company and you check the box. And if you don't have it, you don't check the box and you focus your efforts on building what is mentioned, which is quite easy if you have all knowledge, tools, and everything, but this all is covered in the course, right? So you are lucky that you have everything you need to implement in your company. Also, actually, this file, again, this is a link. All this kind of color and font with underlined text, all this text are links. In all my presentations, I only use underline if I put link in it. So click this link and you will see the file, and you'll see that this file has different tabs. And another tab that I'm going to tell you about is recruiter's assessment. It's not only about having correct processes in place or templates or documents, but it's also about having right recruiters in place. Because if you don't have right recruiters, then you can't work perfectly and follow the processes. And that's why you need to assess your recruiters if they have all knowledge that is needed to make your recruitment successful. So this is the list of all these competencies and knowledge, but also in the file we have the checklist that helps to assess your recruiters and to find their gaps, their knowledge gaps, and to target these gaps with different trainings and courses. Also in the file, we have the audit of recruiting indicators, right? So we firstly check if we calculate all these metrics. And if we do check, we may put current values, and then we may set target values just to achieve probably next year, right? So just make sure that you calculate all these metrics, you monitor them, you try to improve them. They are in a range of benchmarks of best practices, and in that case, you'll be having correct recruitment process. So let's talk about these benchmarks, right? Because here we have just a list, and here I have some benchmarks for yourself, so you may compare if your recruitment is good enough or not. We start from hiring cost. By hiring cost, we mean sum of all recruiting costs, and actually here I have an article about how to calculate everything. And we divide the sum of all recruiting costs on number of hires. And the benchmarks here is 1 or 2 monthly candidate salary. So it's monthly salaries. What kind of cost we calculate here? We calculate external costs and internal costs, right? So just make sure that you don't miss anything here. Then vacancy closing date. So the benchmark here, it depends on the difficulty. So the more difficult the vacancy, the longer days you need to close the vacancy. But the benchmark here is from 30 to 60 with average about 45. Then average score of candidate. When we use scorecard, we assess all candidates and we want to achieve some benchmark, some average mark. And here I would refer to 4.5 as assessment by managers when 5 means the candidate perfectly matches the requirements. Then satisfaction of hiring managers with the vacancy and candidates and recruiter. So the benchmark here is 4.5 out of 5. So actually, if we have some score here, like 4.5, we mean that the highest score is 5. So usually, this is standard approach to use 5-point scale. Then percentage of probation period passed. So we calculate how many people passes probation period, and the benchmark here is 95%. Then we have percentage with more than 1 year of service. And here we target 90%. So we don't lose more than 10% of our candidates becoming employees for the first year. Then correlation of hiring and on-the-job evaluation. So it shows us the precision with which we evaluate our candidates. For this, we need to apply some more advanced analytics. We have to use Pearson formula in Excel, and this is good to calculate. And the score here is 0.65, which means the ideal prediction of future performance. Efficiency of search channels, just here we don't have a benchmark. We only analyze the volume that each channel generates us and how these channels are effective or not. For this, we have another metric, which is quality. So you divide number of hires from the channel by number of candidates from the channel. And if one of the channel doesn't generate enough volume and the quality is low, so probably you will want to stop using this channel, like specific job site or something else. Conversion percentage within the funnel. Here I'm showing you some general ideas. There is no benchmark for certain stages. There is just common wisdom that the percentage shouldn't be less than 10% and shouldn't be more than 90%, otherwise something is wrong here. Then percentage of internal hires. So how many vacancies we are closing with internal hires, with internal candidates. And the benchmark here is from 10 up to 30%. Then we have percentage of hiring based on employee recommendations or employee referrals. And the target here is from 30 up to 50%. Average number of candidates at the top of the funnel, which is very important because so many companies, they have problems with the talent acquisition because lack of candidates at the top of the funnel. So benchmark here is 300 candidates, both passive and active candidates. So those who applied via job sites and other platforms, and those who were added by a recruiter. Average speed of candidate passing through the funnel. And here we target 30 days, 30 calendar days. So we mean that the candidate we contacted first and then we hired them should spend not more than 30 days on the whole recruitment process. Otherwise, we may lose this candidate. Response rate to the first contact. By first contact, we mean first attempt to approach via email or messenger, but not just one attempt, but several attempts via before the first conversation, right? So the target here is 40%. Percentage of acceptance of job offer, it's the target here is 90% because we are not giving job offer for those who we don't believe they accept the job offer. Otherwise, why we actually do the job offer if we didn't, if we don't know and we don't believe they accept it. Percentage of those who made it to the interview. So it's anti-ghosting metric, I call it. The benchmark here is more than 30%. Average number of closed vacancies per one recruiter per month. And here I have local benchmark. I'm talking about $10,000 of annual monthly salary of all candidates. And what we mean by 10,000? 10,000 means 10 times of average monthly salary for my region and my industry. Sorry, not industry, but the region. We ignore the industry. So, for example, if in Kiev, average monthly salary is close to 1,000, I multiply by 10, I have 10,000. If Berlin, average monthly salary is maybe 3,000 euros, so you use 30,000 euros here. And you do the same for other locations, right? And then you divide by average candidates, again, monthly salary. Then percentage of staff occupancy, it means how much employees we have out of those who were planned, including all our current employees. Average search period for open vacancies. So we target 75% of the planned closing date. Percentage of vacancies that have already exceeded the standard duration of closing date. The target here is having them no more than 10%. Calculation of the number of recruiters required. Here I'm referring again to $10,000, which means for my country and my city, 10 average monthly salary for all industries. Then how to analyze the funnel. Talking about the funnel, we have to understand the idea. Funnel actually comes to us from the marketing, and they have the idea of funnel that reflects how they acquire clients. So they do advertisement, they put clients through the different stages, and then they have buyers or customers. Any funnel is usually divided by 3 stages. It has top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. And it serves different goals, right? So for recruitment, we also have this kind of funnel, and we also have different stages, and we also have analytics that helps us to analyze the funnel. So this is a standard funnel. Again, this is a file, this is a template for you to use for your purposes. And this funnel and this file helps you to do both things. First, analyze your real vacancy. So you just put your figures here, you see the conversion rate, and you analyze and make some conclusions. And actually, you compare these metrics with other vacancies. If you use applicant tracking system, that you are lucky one because you have this prepared automatically right into the system without need of any calculations. If you don't use applicant tracking systems, then you do need to make these calculations. What we also have here, we may use this tool not just to analyze our current vacancies, but also to plan our work with new vacancies. For this, we enter our standard metrics for each stage yield ratio, and then we put how many hires we want to make. And this funnel calculates how many responses we need at the top of the funnel, or candidates added, phone screen, interview, final interview, and everything. And also, it has another part of this document that helps us to plan how we are going to fill the top of the funnel. So we have the list of sources. These sources you may change with your sources, specifically this. Then you allocate percentages for each of the sources. You have your weeks, and you allocate 100% for the weeks. And then you have plan for acquire candidates from each channel. So you may pay attention. If one of the channel is not giving you enough candidates, you may increase your efforts in this channel, or maybe choose another channel to compensate your lack of candidates from current channel. It also helps you to plan all stages of the funnel, like phone screening, interview, final interview, week by week, and then put your current situation to understand how close you to the close of the vacancy. And it also has the analysis of the bottom of the funnel that helps you to understand your chances to offer to be accepted by the candidate. So this is the instructions, you just use 1 or 0, 1 for yes and 0 for no, and there are some checklists. So that's how we use this funnel. How to collect data for the funnel? Could be in form of recruiters reporting on each vacancy. So you need numbers of candidates added with channels from where, numbers of phone interviews, final interview, and hirings. Or you may use ATS, or you may use analogs of ATS like Pipedrive or any CRM that your company uses. How to work with metrics? You compare these metrics between segments. You monitor trends month over month. You compare to other companies if you have their data. And you look for correlation to other metrics that are important to you. Now let's talk about recruitment SLA. Why it's important to set recruitment's SLA. How it usually happens. In many organizations, the relationship between the recruiting department and customers or hiring managers is poor. Everyone blames each other for the delay in closing vacancies. Instead of working together, these two teams go their separate ways. The recruiting department is looking for candidates in sweat, while customers easily reject them or do not respond to emails at all or do not show up to the interview and other bad stuff. Golden rule: this poor relationship between recruiting and the customer is a loser in a world where competition for candidates is high. Recruitment needs to find candidates and sell the job. Customers need to follow through quickly. So, cooperation agreement with the customer or service level agreement originally comes to us from the IT world. For example, in IT world, they have system availability rate at, let's say, 99 point and several nines % per month. Use SLAs for recruiting to replace the subjective and qualitative aspects of the recruiter-customer relationship with clearly defined tasks and quantified goals. How to develop this kind of SLAs? So we first start thinking about SLAs with customers. How quickly a recruiter begins a search after receiving job requisition form? When they present the first candidates, within 1 week or maybe 2 weeks? How many candidates are presented in the first 10 days? How many candidates will be found for the vacancy in total? Let's say at the top of the funnel. How quickly the recruiter schedules interview after the candidates have been matched by the client or approved by the client. Then you think about next SLAs. So the relationship with customers is two-way. So recruiters have to meet their metrics, but so do customers. A simple question: how quickly should the customer respond to resume sent by recruiter? By customer, we mean hiring manager. Studies show that conversion rates increase exponentially closer to the event. And also think about SLA with candidates. Deadlines for response after the interview. Are they interested or not? Deadlines for completing the test assignment. Deadlines for accepting the job offer. they are also participants in the process. Example of SLA for customers. Every candidate sent by recruiter must be reviewed within 24 hours. Recruiting is accountable to customers just as customers are accountable to recruiting. The recruiting SLA defines a set of behaviors expected of recruiting to ensure that each candidate is handled effectively. More questions to consider. If a recruiter calls a potential candidate and does not get through, when should they call again? This SLA is rather SLA from recruiters to head of recruitment than to customers, right? It's like internal SLAs. Should the recruiter call back tonight, tomorrow, next week? How many times should the recruiter call before giving up with this specific candidate? What SLA or what kind of SLA there could be? Could be SLA of quantity. For example, total candidates added to the funnel, candidates sent, interviews conducted during the week, candidates before finalist selection. Could be in the form of timeline, when they need to show the first candidates, responding to submitted resumes by hiring manager, scorecard completion and feedback after the interview within how many hours. Could be quality SLA, scorecard gray level. So like a recruiter should show or present the candidates only with certain score in the scorecard. Financial salary expectations of candidates, like recruiters should not present candidates with the salary expectation higher more than 20% of agreed and approved salary for the vacancy. How to elaborate? Think back to recent complaints from recruiters and customers. What were they about? Ask recruiters and clients what their expectations are in terms of timing, quantity, quality, maybe budget, and others. Ask a few candidates what they are most stressed about in terms of timing or quantity in getting through the interview process. Walk through the entire recruiting process and set optimal timelines. Then reports. Options for preparing reports in recruitment. It could be in HRIS or ATS, could be HRIS ATS plus dashboard, so you may connect Google Data Studio or Power BI to build better reports. You may use different third-party applications like Recruitment Dashboard by GegaBoard. You may use even Excel and spreadsheet, and the idea here is that the simpler is the better. Main principle. The compilation of the report should not exceed the value of its availability. Reporting is not the way to solve problems, though most often required when they appear. A satisfied customer or hiring manager is not interested in reports, and they are not necessary and they are not useful. For the customer, the only useful reporting is funnel analytics to understand if enough candidates have already been researched, just to understand if it's time to make a decision. So the simplest way to build the report is to use this template. For each vacancy, each week, recruiter reports the vacancy, shows how many candidates were added during the week, active candidate search, how many added. So this is applicants, we call them active applicants, and here we call them passive candidates because we actively search for them. Telephone screening, HR interview, testing, and other stages. So we show week by week, so we add columns for each week and we show the total. And also we have a list of candidates with status and comments. This is quite enough. Of course, if you use some dashboard or third-party application, it gives you even more information, and of course, it would be more useful. It's another form of dashboard that shows what you may want to show to your customers. And one more dashboard, again, one more solution to consider if you want to use these dashboards. Then handling complaints. Sometimes complaints happen. People complain towards recruiters. How to deal with these complaints if you hear the complaint about work of recruiter. I would recommend you to consider complaint as a gift, like in this book, and to take the algorithm from this book to deal with complaints. So first, listen to the client carefully. Repeat the nature of the complaint and make sure you understand it correctly. Then apologize. You may say, I am sorry you feel that. I am sorry this happens. This happened. Acknowledge the validity of the client's feelings. Tell what you're going to do to remedy the situation. Discuss with the client what you need to do to prevent the situation from happening again, and thank the customer for bringing the problem to their attention. And usually it's enough and it helps. What kind of complaints there could be? Towards the recruiter or speed at which the job closes and others, so let's consider in details. If the complaint towards the recruiter, ask the client or a hiring manager about the specific examples of behavior or results. Compared to the SLA, is the recruiter not meeting or does the customer have inflated expectations? Give feedback to the recruiter. If necessary, have a joint meeting and clarify details. If it's just personal, change the recruiter for another one. So, yeah, it happens. If it's about the speed of closing the vacancy, again, check with the SLA. If there is an excess, have a joint meeting, debrief the reasons. If necessary, connect more recruiters or pause other vacancies or not yet transfer new vacancies so the number of active vacancies in the work decreases. If it's about the number of candidates, again, check the current SLAs for deadlines and candidates. If it's okay, discuss customer expectations. If it's not okay, discuss with the recruiter as much as possible to show candidates, possibly involve customer in early stages of interviews, or discuss candidates the recruiters plan to interview. If it's about the quality of candidates, view scores on the scorecard. Evaluate requirements and wages. If they don't match, proceed as described in the next section. Negotiate customer expectations, prioritize requirements, and agree on what scorecard scores the recruiter will present to the client, and to discuss with the recruiter and the customer's evaluation grid what they mean by it. Score 1, score 2, 3, and so on. If it's about candidate salary expectation, understand if there are any pay issues. Offer to consider candidates in different salary ranges without references to the requirements to form an understanding with the customer. If it's about an ability to pay more, discuss which requirements could be lowered. Try to avoid situations where the customer is deliberately lengthening the closing date of the vacancy because it will overburden the recruiter, it will reduce the number of vacancies to be closed, and it will demotivate the recruiter. If it's about excessive demands of a superior manager, hold a meeting with this senior manager. Try to put him in the role of the main customer and work with him first, or her. How to work with problem vacancies. First, I want to start with the warning. Most problematic vacancies result from a breach of the recruiting process. Some jobs become problematic due to lack of reporting. Some jobs become problematic because of lack of contact with the hiring manager. And only the remaining jobs are truly problematic in nature. So, for example, there is no underlying causes other than the nature of the job itself. Remember, it's not just about the recruiter's job, how much about finding the best match between the job and the candidate, as well as adapting the job to the candidate and the candidate to the job. So if you have the problem with the vacancy, or you hear the problem with the vacancy, ask 5 wise questions to find out the reason. So, for example, someone is talking the job is problematic. Ask, why is it problematic? You may receive the answer. We offer low wages below the market. Continue with I. Why are we paying that? The manager said the budget is limited and he can't lower the requirements. Ask another why. Why can't he? He's already understaffed and has to work hard and so himself. Why not enough? No one wants to work in this department. Why not? The job itself is not very interesting. You may even ask more than 5 whys to find the root of the problem. Now, several strategies to deal with the most common problems with vacancies, and we are starting from low-paying jobs. So if you have vacancy with the pay below the market, you may do following. First, you may reduce requirements, but it's not so easy. You can't just go to the customer and say, we need to lower the requirements. What you do? Find relevant market wage data. For example, jobs from other companies, candidate resumes, job site statistics, official market salaries review by Hay, EY, Redford, Mercer, Towers Watson, recruiters reviews like Hayes and other companies, like executive search companies, candidates inquiries, and information from other HR. Find a few typical resumes, match salary and resume to requirements and pay levels, make adjustment to requirements. Be sure to prepare a report, rely on data. Next, revise payment. Research the market. Again, it's not so easy to revise the payment rate. You can't just ask, let's increase pay range for this vacancy. You need to prepare some information. So research the market and prepare a report. Prepare a specific pay proposal on how much you want to increase the pay range for the vacancy. Present 5 to 7 candidates at current pay level. They probably would be with lower requirements. And then show 5 to 7 candidates at market pay levels, which are higher than your pay level. Find arguments why the candidates will pay back their investments by comparing the additional investment in their salary over a year and the expected result they will give. For example, if the sales plan is 10,000 per month, a more experienced salesperson will bring 2,000 per month more, or 24,000 a year, and we will have to pay $300 per month more, or just $3,600 per month. Then consider other options, maybe increase the search time. And here we have the algorithm, how to calculate search time needed to close the vacancy. Then you may want to postpone other jobs. Sometimes it helps when you just put on pause some vacancies, or you give them to another recruiter, and the recruiter focuses on less amount of vacancies, and they can spend more time with these vacancies, right? So consider this as well. Or maybe involve more recruiters. Sometimes they just need help, so you may want to involve more recruiters. You may divide candidates by some segments or by sources, and then the recruiters work with candidates. Invest in HR marketing. The easiest way is to buy premium jobs on job sites. You may send emails, you may buy Facebook ads, or you may want add some recruitment gamification. You may conduct a meetup. You may propose sign-in bonus, or you may propose external referral bonus. Add more bonuses or options. So here is an example how to do that. See people from another industry. Very often companies, they limit the industry only to their competitors, their current industry, but usually there are even more candidates from other industries. Just observe your current candidates and employees and analyze from which industry they came. See people from the regions or remotely. Sometimes it's more efficient to consider people from other locations. Or try to focus on selling not financial incentives to change the job. Here's a statistic on which you may want to focus. Consider internal candidates with low pay, right? So here's the algorithm. Or consider two-step hiring. So you promise to promote the candidate after a certain period of time to a higher level of vacancy and higher pay level. If there is some troubles within the job, not about the payment or requirements, so the problem is the leader, for example. Look for candidates with the maximum adaptability. This could be a personality test or a classic competency-based interview. We are looking for older people with satisfied ambitions, or for younger people who are ready to learn even from such an executive with non-standard behavior. If the problem is the working schedule, then try to organize interviews during this problematic schedule, during the night or weekend, if you want to hire people who are ready to join to work this time frame. If it's about responsibilities, just understand there is no bad responsibilities. One responsibilities are bad for one person, but are good. The same responsibilities could be good for another person. So it's about preferences and it's about talents. So understand the preferences of candidates, ask them if they like this kind of responsibilities, and just hire people who are okay with these responsibilities. If it's about working conditions, analyze the demotivation checklist and eliminate any demotivation factors. If it's about the team, you need to involve the team into recruitment process, so to have their opinion as well, and just to present the team to the candidate, so the candidate could decide if they want to work with this team or not. Also could be the problem with subordinates. Sometimes managers leave the company because of some subordinates. Again, involve the subordinates into recruitment process. If the problem with the job is that there is a conflict with other departments, just involve those departments in the recruitment process so they also make contributions to the decision. If it's about the technology and automation, you may offer to improve or introduce the automation as soon as candidate is hired. What to do if the employer brand is weak? You also have several ideas. First, create reviews. And here's the algorithm. Then pay more. Of course, if you don't have very good employer brand, you have to compensate with higher salaries. Publish articles just to be searchable by candidates on Google. Hire maybe even a PR manager to have even more articles. Hold an event to show your company and your employees to potential candidates. Make a career website or pay or play as unknown company, because sometimes people are interested in something new and unknown, like Palantir. Conduct a series of webinars, again, to show your expertise, to show your team players. Make a Facebook page if you don't have one, right? Play up the prominence of shareholders, partners, or customers. Sometimes your shareholders are famous and you may build your employer brand based on that. Working with negativity in social networks and websites. Sometimes you see these bad reviews. Some sites, they accept pay for deleting bad reviews. Sometimes they don't delete bad reviews, but you may reply and respond to negativity. If it's in Facebook or other social media, if some candidates comments all your posts with some negative information, just block them. Also hold the contest in the company and ask your employees, probably newcomers, to leave the review in real words. Or you may post your employee stories on the site just to show that it's true, you have good relations with your employees. What if the right candidates are not available? Search in another country, search 1 or 2 levels higher. You may want to hire 2-3 candidates instead of 1. You may hire a candidate and send to the training, or you may create a board of directors or consultants to fill the competency gap. Search in another country, right? So you search for neighboring countries. If you want to consider different levels, you may want to consider people from higher levels, and don't be scary, because people usually sometimes interested in lower level positions because of different reasons, like in this film, right? hiring 2-3 candidates instead of one. Sometimes we have so many requirements that couldn't be put into one single person, and it's better to find several persons instead. Hire and send to the university and to the modern class or program. Formate the board of directors or advisors so to have these competencies in the company. And now the homework. Evaluate the recruiting team with a knowledge assessment tool and generate 5 ideas for their development. Or calculate 5 recruiting metrics of your choice from the 20. Or prepare a vacancy report. Or conduct a checklist for recruiting audit. Also recommend you to read the book, which is Who? Solve Your Number One Problem. This is it. Now it's self-assessment questions. Now you have all the answers. Thank you for attention. I'll be waiting for homework and see you soon. Bye.